Okay, so with me today is Jim Devereux from Hinshaw and Culbertson.
Hi, everybody.
Jim and I met in 2001 when Hinshaw hired me as a web developer to help develop client websites and their intranet. Can you tell I'm reading this? Since then, the IT team at Hinshaw has grown from about 12 to 19 people, and the number of servers from less than 20 to more than 80, some of them virtual. Hinshaw has always depended upon external consultants for a variety of services and support, and when I moved to the Canary Islands, I was lucky enough to become one of them, remotely. Hinshaw has offices in 12 states, so the idea of working remotely is not new to Jim, but I think the idea of hiring someone so far away to provide somewhat vital services was a bit of a risk in 2004, and I suspect that since then, Hinshaw has hired more and more remote workers. So, Jim, is that true or is that not true?
Yeah, I think that sums things up. In terms of remote workers, yeah, I think we're a little more open to the idea. It doesn't happen a lot yet, but it doesn't exclude anybody from consideration depending on the type of work we're looking to do.
So let me ask you a quick question. Just so that people watching this know that it's not just IT work, like you said. I mean, as I recall, when I was there, there was a question. I think we were trying to get people to scan documents like somewhere in Asia or something like that.
We I mean, we use litigation support people. They handle casework, whether it's large databases, large amounts of paper or electronic data that needs to be brought into some kind of system to be reviewed. We use a multitude of resources for that around the country. Some of them are off-site, out of country, depending on the type of work being done and what the company has. A lot of the companies take the basic scanning work and put that in outside of the U.S. because the costs are cheaper, but sometimes it's some of the more skilled work too in terms of contract attorneys and things like that. So that's very common. That's used around the firm. Some of it comes through the IT department and our litigation support department. Some of them are working independently with contractors they're familiar with, especially on the coasts, because of the time changes. They normally just work with partners out there. So I think you see a lot of that. It's litigation support and electronic discovery has really blossomed, and there are resources everywhere, and it's kind of important. They just do that to maintain costs. It's so critical, but yet a big portion of the work is boilerplate that can be done anywhere. So try to look at that one.
So I wanted to clarify two things. One is when Jim says resources, he means, generally speaking, companies or individuals outside of Chicago. You're in Chicago. And
right.
Also, the other thing is that green hue that we're seeing is because you're next to a nuclear power station. Is that correct?
Well, I have a small generator in my office.
Oh, a small nuclear power generator. Okay.
I like to keep it around here. I've got the camera set so you can't see the third arm growing out of the back of, between the shoulders.
And right now it looks like you're sitting, but you're actually you've got a ball as the bottom half of your body, and you just kind of roll around.
I'm just on a steer. I'm just rotating around the room. I never get to leave this desk.
Oh, how funny. You're not even real, in fact. You're just sort of a robot there.
Pretty much. At this point.
At any point, you're going to go, what?
This is my virtual me, which doesn't really care about the paycheck. That still gets sent to my house where I really live.
Good one. That's a good one. Keep that in mind, folks. So, could you talk a little bit? Also, you do a lot of hiring, and the people watching this video, in theory, anyway, are people who will be looking for jobs, sometimes their first job, and probably the first communication is going to be in writing, I would suspect. Could you talk a little bit about your impressions or how you make a decision about who you're going to interview, who you're not going to interview, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and I'll start out by saying, based upon my discussions with other people at my level, I think our approach is a little less regimented than some other places. To me, and it also depends on the type of job. So let's break it into two categories. Entry-level jobs have a far different process than if I'm looking for somebody with several years of experience. Entry-level jobs, I can't look at the resume so much to gather what I need. There's going to be an educational background there. So that's probably a more formal process for somebody who's looking for like an entry-level job, their first job in the marketplace. I'm going to be really looking for, if the first correspondence is a resume with some type of cover letter, that cover letter is going to carry a lot of weight in terms of getting into a position where I may want to talk to that person. And now this, I don't know if this applies everywhere, but you're really more in tune to it working with a law firm. Law firm, the product we produce is documents. The people here communicate for a living. The ability to write well and to express your thoughts well is important. I'll tell you right off, and I've told people this before, if you send me a cover letter with mistakes in it, grammatical or spelling, I won't even look at your resume. I will throw it right to the side. It's not something that you had to do in a rush. You had time to look at it. You had time to have somebody else think about it, take a look at it for you. Even if your skills aren't that great, there's no excuse for it. So that'll disqualify you right away. The same thing if I do get to your resume, if you can't cohesively put it in some kind of order, and I'm a little weird about that. If you change tense in a paragraph back and forth from your bullet points, one is active, one is passive, that stuff drives me nuts. And I get the feeling you had somebody cobble it together for you, and it's not truly expressing, your opinion of what you did.
All right. So anyway, go ahead.
It's important. I mean, it's got to sound natural. I mean, and the thing is, if you do that type of thing, if you try to inject what, like you were saying, like superfluous words, you probably haven't done it throughout the whole document. So it even makes the part where you thought, I'll add something here, look even worse. It's like, well, we're going along, and then this one paragraph just suddenly sticks out like, oh, somebody just ate a dictionary. And it puts another, it just makes another mark against it. I mean, the one thing I would stress, especially to somebody looking for an entry-level position, is you should realize I may have 100 resumes coming in at any given time in a day or two. And there may be 3 or 4 of us maximum looking at those resumes. To think that I am going to go through every one of those to, perfectly to find the exact candidate is unrealistic. I am going to quickly look for a way to eliminate 95% of them. Simple things like just, not formatting your resume correctly, or not. Now, formatting is a little different these days because everything comes electronically, but, just the English and that you actually written down the proper job that you're, applying for, that that it doesn't look like a form letter. And then I'm going to spend a little more time with the 5% that are left. And realistically, I don't want to if I'm hiring one position, I don't want to interview 20 people. I want to interview 5. And if I can't find somebody in those 5, I'll go to the next 5. But I'll try to get down to 5, and because I have other things to do as well. There's some people who just do hiring for a living, but in most places we're trying to hire somebody while we fit it in with the other responsibilities we have on a day-to-day basis.
Do you have any last minute, suggestions, recommendations for anybody who's maybe looking to try and do some work for a company in the U.S. from outside, not being from there and not necessarily having any contacts? Any ideas about what they can do to help sell themselves? That's a hard question, I know, but...
I think one thing, and depending on the market and industry, you want to do some research in that industry, and you may want to look at publications to see if you see companies that already obviously are comfortable with that type of arrangement. There's plenty of companies that still can't get their arms around looking at resources outside of somebody physically in the building. So they may be open to it, but you're probably going to have to send a lot more resumes to those companies to even get to the 2 or 3 who are interested. I think, and I think a lot of companies would do the same thing. Their first forays, their first experiences with remote workers are going to be somebody who's not at the office, but they're not half a country away or half a world away.
Understood.
They're going to take small incremental steps, like they're not in the office, but 5 miles away, and I can have them come in if I need to.
Yeah,
and they're going to grow into that kind of relationship. I mean, ours grew a little differently because, it really grew the same way. You were here, and then you went somewhere else. And it was a lot easier to say, well, we already know this works, so distance isn't such a big deal.
Right, and maybe like if they're going to do remote work, they could
that kind of environment.
Stop! I just lost all that. Go ahead, say it again.
I was going to say but looking at publications and things like that where people talk about their industries is a way of finding people who are actively doing that type of work, and they're probably a better first step to at least get somebody who will at least talk to you. You know?
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I think we're going to close off with that. We've gone almost 20 minutes. That's like twice as long as I'd like to go. But
that's okay. I'm good.
Time suckage.
If phone has anything wrong, I'm not sure what's going on. So.
Everybody left the building.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, Jim, thank you very much. And I'll be in touch, too, on some other stuff. And I'll be posting this, I don't know, sometime in the next few weeks, I suppose. So thanks a lot. I'm going to stop recording.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.